This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. All right. Well, Justin, thank you once again for joining me for the Thoughtful Travellers Book Club. We are talking about the July 2020 book. Hasn't this year raced by? Like we're in August now. I don't understand. It stopped for a while and now we're here. So yes, as Justin showed you, mine's a bit glary, Justin, you'll have to do yours. The Salt Path.
Oh, lovely. Yes.
It's a beautiful cover. But interestingly, nice but Justin, you were just telling me before we started that the cover wouldn't have attracted you. You would not have picked this book up.
I wouldn't have thought it was a travel book. And then the little blurb from the Sunday Times and the Costa Book Awards shortlist, they tend to not entice me. I don't know why.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you're offended by the shortlist, but
I don't know. Sometimes awards, I like very to decide subjective. For myself.
Yep, yes. Fair enough. Yep, but it does. You read out the Sunday Times bit to me, a tale of triumph, of hope over despair, of love over everything. It does seem a tad and a bit girly.
Oh, I guess it's one way of putting it.
I can say that I'm a girl.
It probably wouldn't attract the audience the book deserves, although it does look like it's had plenty of people read it and deservedly so. So, and even the back, I guess it didn't sell it to me initially, and I'm gone. But the point of book club is to read books that you might not actually read.
Exactly.
Or have thought of reading.
So big tick on that. We have achieved that.
Big tick.
Good evening, Helen. I see Helen has said she's finally got on top of book purchases. She's halfway through the Salt Path and really enjoying it. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that, yes, Helen. It is an excellent read, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the rest of it as well. I could not stop. So I actually listened to this on audiobook on Catherine's suggestion because she said that the narrator is the author, Raynor Winn, and that she has this beautiful accent, and she really does. It was just delightful to listen to it. And then when I reread it just recently for book club, like read the physical book.
Actual book.
Yes, the actual book. I don't know, you can't read an audiobook, can you?
That's true.
I read the physical book and I could just hear her the whole time. It was just beautiful.
It does make I always have that issue of imagining what the voice sounds like, so I might have to check the audiobook out. And,
well, you can at least just listen to a preview of it and
listen to the preview,
and then you'll hear what she's like, and then you can just imagine it from there. So yes, it just fitted perfectly. And I think because like in the writing of the book, the voice is very strong. It's very it's her tone. It's her. Yeah, it just worked. So I wanted to say a couple of things first, and then we've got a few kind of themes that we've kind of put together, haven't we, Justin? We might get some input from others as well. But I think I loved that it's a travel book, but it's not just a travel book. It's kind of a mishmash of genres, I suppose. But it's still travel, for sure.
It's still travel. It kind of makes you feel like that if you're pondering something that you would really love to do, that perhaps maybe you could do it, or it's kind of, I guess it's like maybe even a guide on a good way to live life, perhaps. It's hard, but there's a lot of it made me look inwardly at what I do, and would I do this, or would I am I just wasting my time and pottering
around through life,
not making full use. But I guess in the current times, it's probably even harder.
Well, it is particularly hard at the moment. So what you just said made me think of a section that I was trying to find in my notes, and I don't know if I actually got it into my notes, and I can't find it. But do you remember when they met, I don't know what town they're in, but they met a couple of Polish waitresses who were there on a gap year.
Yes,
and one of the Polish waitresses spoke to them and said, I really want to do something big. Like, I want to do something like you're doing. I thought, that's the thing. You've got to do those things. If you feel drawn to doing something different and big, then you got to do it. And they really reiterated that, didn't they?
And I suspect every single person who's ever travelled has had someone say the exact same thing to me. Oh, it'd be great to travel.
Yeah.
Well, great to do this. It'd be great to be able to do that. And even on this, in the whole book, they had people come up to them and say, "Oh, isn't it nice that you're able to do this? And how do you get so much time off?" And and that was a common theme in the book.
Yes, well, I mean, let's chat about that now, because that was a really interesting thing. I mean, the whole premise. Well, it's not just a premise because it's real. It's the whole reason that they managed to do the salt path, to walk that path, was this awful situation where they ended up losing their house.
Like I said, I just can't imagine how. You kind of think, I guess in Australia, I kind of think that couldn't happen. I would have thought something like that in England as well. But obviously these things can happen, and I think the whole theme of the homelessness the whole way, it kind of they knew that people had a certain perception of people who said they were homeless. And so early on in the book, they definitely didn't tell anyone. And people just kind of assumed they might have been retired and walking the trail. That's why they had the time. And or they sold their house, or there's a lot of things they didn't correct people on because it was just going to be easier for them. And I think probably everyone has done that to some degree. I know, for example, like female travellers are often, if someone assumes they've got a husband, they don't correct them because often
I've done that.
Best just to let them assume it. So so it's not a uncommon thing and they just did the same thing about homelessness. But it made me think about, how do I actually, if I see a homeless person in the street, how do I react? And I probably do react like some of these people. I know deep down that they're not always the stereotype that people paint them out to be, and it could just be, some of them were highly successful people and they just had a bad turn in life. And so this book really just kind of shows you how easy that is to happen, and have that all, kind of shatter around them, and then add on top of that the illness as well.
Absolutely. And two big double whammies all at once. Two
big double whammies, and it's like, and then once those two double whammies, you come down and they go, "Oh, yeah, let's do this walk that we've been talking about." So, and I think that was the whole idea. That's what I really got out of the book was, sometimes we put things off when we think we can do them, and they at least, I guess the way I see it is, they seized the opportunity when it happened and probably made the most of it, and probably wouldn't regret a thing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing because, if that happened to a lot of us, the whole you lose your house, you've got a serious health diagnosis. What are you going to do? You'd just kind of curl up somewhere and, I don't know, wait it out. You don't normally take off and start a many months long walk, do you? But
no,
good on them. I mean, the homelessness thing is really interesting. Joan, actually, a big shout out to Joan who's watching, because Joan was the one who suggested this book. So I'm very grateful for that. And Joan wrote the homelessness aspect, added something and educated me on the prejudices we can have. It's so true. Yeah. I could talk on that topic for an hour, but I'll just give you 2 quick points. When I lived in Japan, there were always homeless men living around Osaka Castle. And at first I was kind of surprised, and I learnt that they were mostly like salary men, normal professional men who had lost their jobs after the Japanese economic bubble. This is like 20 years ago. And the welfare system at the time was that their wives could get some government assistance if they kicked their husbands out, basically. So so that was their kind of way to financially survive, was like, okay, well, you're a useless husband to me now, off you go, And so that was a horrifying thing. So you just, to the point that you just never know what the story is behind someone's homelessness. And my second thing, I could talk about this forever. I was
just going to say, culturally, you never know, especially in other cultures when you're traveling either. So that would have been one of those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember being really surprised to find so many homeless men in Japan. And it was very clear they lived under these blue tarps, and it was, there was a lot fewer there when I was there more recently. So I'm not sure. I hope it was solved in a effective way, but I don't know. But anyway, I have a really good friend in Melbourne who works for The Big Issue, and so she's worked for The Big Issue for many, many years. And so through Jules, I have learnt a lot about homelessness, and that's exactly that whole, reiterate of that you never know the circumstances, and we should do whatever we can, because who knows, it could be us. If I'm ever homeless, I am hoping that lots of thoughtful travellers will take me in around the world, and I will find a way to just travel. What do you reckon?
Yeah. But I think going back, even just without trying to take this too far off topic, I guess, because we all have these. I don't think I would ever be prejudiced or biased about these kind of things. But then when you think about it and you go, the number of times where someone's just started a conversation and all I've thought about, they're just going to want some money. I haven't got money, so I'll just avoid having the conversation. And that in itself is, maybe the conversation is all they wanted, like a couple of minutes to have a chat. So, and they've done lots of studies. We all have these unconscious bias, and we can all have the best intentions, but at some level, it happens, and I guess that's why a lot of people don't feel like they associate with like being racist or any of those kind of things, because on some level they don't think they are, but unconscious, the whole unconscious bias and their actions are another.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So I mean, it's definitely an eye opener for me with that kind of stuff, and I think a lot of people who read it, how do I personally see homelessness? And
definitely, but I think it also goes to show that traveling is an important part of kind of confronting your unconscious biases as well. Like you often, if you just stay at home in the same environment all the time, you're much less likely to realize, any of these prejudices and stuff that you have, or you're just not exposed to different kinds of people. So traveling really helps that, doesn't it? Even if where you're traveling is in England and you're coming across some interesting characters on the path, on the Southwest Coast path. Okay, speaking of the path, I thought that a lot of this story talked to me about how the journey is more important than the destination.
Yeah, I think so. I got a little bit every now and then I would just kind of look at a map to see where they were, but I don't think it was really like she mentioned the towns they were in, and the next headland or the next beach or the next bay and all that kind of stuff. But it never was. That was never seemed to be, other than a few interesting tidbits from the towns and that. It never seemed to be part of the story. It was just kind of almost like a timing the story to a point, so we were in this place and we had taken 42 days to get here or something like that. But that's all it was. Yeah. Whereas it seemed to be more about where they were walking and how steep it was. Like, they went the wrong way, and then finding places to camp when the weather was bad, and so they'd be cold and huddled up in a bar, not able to afford beer or they'd find ways to get some hot water and share a tea bag between them and things like that. And so it was very much about their walk and their journey and their experience, more so than even when they got to Land's End, which is apparently a very touristy spot, and even by the descriptions, very touristy. Mm-hmm. I think from my memory, they spent barely half an hour there, if that. They
didn't mention it very much at all. Yeah.
No. So,
which I have to say, from my experience of Land's End, I've been there a couple of times, but most recently was 15 years ago perhaps, and I was doing a walk, which would have been a small part of the Southwest Coast Path, with my Slovak friend Tatiana, and we walked out there, and then you have to pay, I don't know how much it was, but certain number of pounds to be able to take a picture with that famous Land's End sign. And she was absolutely disgusted that such a thing would be charged for. So there's no way we're taking a picture there. And I was like, okay, well, I have a picture from when I was a kid there. So, okay, that'll have to do it. Off we stormed. So we spent a very short amount of time at Land's End, as I recall. I think we were starting our walk there. And so we got there, got off the bus there, saw that, right, off we went. So I think we were probably at Land's End for about 5 minutes. So they spent a little bit longer than I did, but it's definitely very touristy from my memory of it. So yeah. There was one part that I really, obviously, as you said, they were going slowly, and there's nothing wrong with that. I like slow. You see more. But there was just this one part that I just want to read, because it was just such the epitome of slow travel. I'm always saying how slow travel is important. But this is kind of towards the end in chapter 16. But I love this bit. So she wrote, other walkers of the Southwest Coast Path talk about miles done in a day, records set, targets met. Our path was getting slower and slower. It could have been the hour we spent examining the rare autumn lady's tresses orchid, or the afternoon trying to photograph one butterfly, or the evening hanging over Kynance cliffs, watching seals in the cove below. But as it got dark, we realised we'd probably only covered 3 miles, so put the tent up around the corner from where we'd taken it down. I love it.
They didn't have an agenda. They just, or a time frame. And I think really it was only winter that was the onset of winter that was the real issue. But I would have probably sat there watching seals probably for much more than an hour, and probably would have had to pitch my tent there. So.
Yes. Oh, I mean, I love the idea that they had as much time as they had. So
one of the few good things that came out of the whole circumstances that they were in.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that, even if the reason they had so much time wasn't a good reason, but they managed to, to make the most of it. So, now I remember you said in our chat before you loved all the dog walkers showing up.
Oh, it seemed to start at the beginning of the book. It's like, why are the dog walkers up so early? Or they thought they were in some really remote, far-off place, and all they could hear was dog walkers past the tent at 6 a.m. in the morning. And I kind of know how they feel, because my house, literally, if there's not kangaroos out the window, there'll be dog walkers. And nothing against dog walkers at all, but I'm just amazed that they're just committed to walking the dog every day at the same time, and that's a great thing. So I don't want to bag it, but it seemed to be a running joke. And then I think I mentioned the bit where she happened to be just going out to the toilet and squatting in behind some hedges, and then a dog walker came past and said hello.
Yes, that was very unfortunate timing. I remember that bit well.
Yes.
Yes, it was. There were lots of ups and downs along the way, but what I really liked is how they did it their way as well. They missed a bit, or they, as you said, when winter came, they stopped for a bit and they came back and did the other section from the other end. And I thought that's actually a really good lesson. It's kind of like parallel to slow travel, but we don't have to travel the way that everybody says you should, or, if you miss, I think in the end they'd missed 40 miles of the path, but
I think, and I know they said they skipped a large built-up area as well, so and that wasn't going to bring them any joy, so they've just gone, we'll bus around it all.
Yeah, exactly.
And, it seemed completely like a good idea to me, anyway.
It does seem like a good idea, exactly. And I think often we get really hung up. It's kind of like I'm in Paris, so I have to go and see the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe and the Notre Dame Cathedral. It's kind of like what's the done thing and what's the the full thing and the whole thing. And we don't actually have to do all of that. And it's a good reminder, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It's those places there's always a reason why they're so popular, but it doesn't mean that you have to see them, or it doesn't mean that you have to devote hours and hours of time or something like that. So it's I think when you're traveling, you should be doing what you want to do and not doing what other people say you should be doing. So
that's a quotable, Justin. When you're traveling, you should be doing what you want to do. It sounds really obvious, doesn't it? Of course, traveling is a choice. Of course, we should do what we want to do. But if you look back on your travels, then quite often we do things that we not necessarily regret, or just we would make different choices given our time again. So
I think things like museums are an obvious one, because not everyone's going to go visit a museum, but other people really quite like them. So I think museums already are in that group. It's the big name attractions, like we mentioned Land's End. It's like some people probably feel they have to go to Land's End just because it's there, and that's what people do. And
it's quite a driving force of travel, isn't it? I suppose, travel marketing is often focused on those kinds of, goals and stuff as well. So it doesn't help.
But these walks, and it's probably not just this walk. I think a lot of walks now they're more focused on just getting out in nature and just enjoying what you see, and so that's what they really got out of that. I think they weren't going to see anything. They were going there to just enjoy each other's company, go for a long walk.
Go for a really, really long walk.
Really long walk, fresh air, it was never ever about seeing stuff. It was always about just being together and doing it.
Yeah.
It's a different way of travelling, I think. And I think other than doing some bushwalks, but often I'm doing bushwalks to see something as well, or like I'll go do Kosciuszko in Australia, and the highest mountain. It's really easy to do, but you're kind of doing it to get to the top. Yes. I might not get a selfie with the can stone on the top, but others do. But you're kind of doing it to get there. So
it's interesting, isn't it? There's also, there's still nothing wrong with doing those things either. And there's something about us that want to make these kind of achievements as well. So
I don't think it's a right or wrong. I think it's just what you prefer. So
yes, and perhaps every trip is a bit different. You know, it's different seasons, different circumstances, and different places. So, Jones just left a comment, which is a great segue for what I want to talk about next. Because Joan says, as a traveller, if you did a walk like this in a different country to your own, you would come across mainly non-tourists, which would be good.
I think it depends on the walk, and different walks are different. But there does seem to be a lot of it seems to be a more common thing. Countries are now like putting up these big long walks as a way of, and so the walk is kind of the travel destination. But you know, you're not really going. You can do a walk like that. You can do a lovely walk somewhere in your own country, but it's just more about. I guess the goal is probably to see bits of the country and come across. You know, you often come across farmers and other things. So
yeah, well, locals, exactly. So. Yeah, come across interesting people. I was just...
And they did that definitely in this book. So
yeah, exactly. I was just thinking about some of the people that they came across. I liked the bit. It was in chapter 7 in Clovelly, where they met. Yep. Do you remember they met? First of all, they met a young man who was about to join the army, and they had a chat with him. And then they went into the visitor centre, which I guess he'd recommended, and he talked about the girl who works there and he liked her. And then they met the girl who worked there, and I think they got.
She liked him,
and she liked him, as it turned out. But she was upset that he was going to the army, and so they said to her, "Oh, maybe you should tell him that you don't want him to go."
Yeah.
I really wanted to know, did she? What happened afterwards? You know, did their little entrance into this town have make some kind of change? But
it's
I like those little incidental kind of the people you end up chatting to along the way kind of moments.
Well, I mean, and that kind of leads into the fact that the whole most of the path, he was being mistaken for someone completely different, someone else completely different. But they managed to use that, and I have no problems with it whatsoever to get some free food, free lodgings.
I thought it was great. They never lied.
No, they never lied.
So he was mistaken for a famous poet, as it turns out.
Yes, and I googled him, and he turns out to be a really famous poet. So
yes, exactly. So, what is he? Is he the poet laureate of Britain, or
poet laureate of Britain, or something?
He wasn't at the time, though. That was only last year he was appointed, I think. So, but obviously he's been pretty. Yes, I did Google him too, and he's been pretty famous.
Maybe the book got him over the line. Perhaps.
I wonder, maybe. Well, that's because now we know about him, so he's much more famous now. That's true. But yes, I remember when.
I was just going to say, even when they actually tried to tell people, like, "Oh, Simon, we know." Is that what you're calling yourself now?
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's what I mean. They never lied and pretended. And then when Moth did the kind of the busking poetry, and he made £28, which was a massive amount for them at that time. So I thought, good on him. I think he was still entertaining. So just because he wasn't the actual famous person, I'm all for that. I think that's all okay. Yes. I thought it was hilarious. Yeah. So. Yeah.
No, I don't begrudge them at all.
Now, I've got one other especially fun thing that I wanted to mention because it was in my list of things that were fun. Maybe I'm just a bit of a geek, but I loved the fact that there's a town which has an exclamation mark in its name, Westward Ho, or Westward Ho, I suppose. Because they pass through this. And
I do like that. Yeah, I do remember that town thinking, what an interesting name. But I think a lot of the towns have some interesting names. But an exclamation mark. I didn't actually even pick that up at the time. But
let me tell you how geeky I got. I investigated a bit further. So the name, it has an exclamation mark because it comes from the name of a book, the title of a book with. And there's another town in the world that has 2 exclamation marks in its name, and it's a town in Quebec in Canada called St. Louis du Ha-Ha, and after each ha, there's an exclamation mark. So that is a very obscure trivia quiz little point of knowledge. If you ever win something by knowing about that.
I probably have a list of town place names in my head at the back that it forms some kind of bucket list, so... These
the exclamation mark town bucket list. Well, there seems to be only those 2 in the world, so there you go.
Yeah,
that's.
I think it's like the town with the longest name in the world, or something like that.
Welsh one. Wales. I can't say it. Yeah.
So again, it's one of those things that I guess it probably is touristy, but it's on some weird bucket list in my head somewhere.
Yeah, well, we can do touristy things too. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, yes.
So it's all good. Now, have you got anything else, any other fun bits that I've missed out?
There was one more funny bit which I thought was quite funny. I can't remember the town. I didn't go back enough pages when I found my bookmark on it, but when they were in the town, and I think they were just lazing in the sun, and some people who were feeding, had some chips and were feeding some seagulls, and they called them tramps. Oh, we don't have your type around here, and then I'm thinking, I'm going, geez, if they knew that A, they didn't have a lot of money, were probably starving and hungry, you should be offering your chips to them, and B, the insult to being called a tramp was gull feeder.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I thought that was the best retort ever. So we'll look like you're a gull feeder. I shouldn't feed them because those gulls, they're bad for them.
Yeah.
You gull feeder.
It usually is. Most places tell you don't feed the birds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I thought that was.
I think that's great. It's the sort of thing they should be using forever as an insult between, as an inside joke insult. Oh, there's a gull feeder. What an idiot!
I don't know how they did it. They didn't seem to get to eat much. It just amazes me, the whole book, what they actually achieved. So
I remember on a couple of days they seem to be surviving on fudge only.
Yeah, fudge or 2-minute noodles or
wine gum lollies.
Yeah. even just the bits where I think they had an insurance payment come out. And,
yes, a direct debit
out of their
that
£45
cancelled. Yes,
cancelled.
I was heartbroken for them.
I just thought, geez, and that was kind of early in the book, and I thought, what else can actually happen here? And I guess I'm glad it pretty much ended in a really nice way, and I think they've found Raynor's obviously found out that she's a really good author. And,
she's got another book coming out in, I think, next month it is. Yeah.
So I don't know.
With a similar cover, though, that you may not like, Justin, but...
Well, I like the artwork. It's just the quotes I was a bit...
Oh, right. Well, I don't know what quote's going to be on this yet, so we'll wait and see. But yeah.
Do you know what the book is about? This is a really good book, so it would make me then think...
I did read about what the next book is about. It's less travel-y. It's more about rewilding an over-farmed farm or something like that. It's terrible synopsis of it, but just imagine her writing style. It'll be great.
Style, yes.
Yeah. So Moth is still alive and doing well. That's the best news. Considering that walk was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, he's doing really well. But the thing I want to try and get her on the podcast, because the one question I haven't been able to find the answer to on the internet is Moth his real name? And if so, why?
Well, I think that got asked a few times in the book, and I think there were people saying, "Oh, that's not your real name," and thinking it was, but they didn't really necessarily answer it. So
no, I've scoured the internet looking for the answer to this question.
You need to also ask her. Yeah, there's a few mysteries in this book.
Although I suspect if it's not on the internet yet, then she's not gonna tell me either. But anyway, this is my goal. One of my 2020 goals.
Hey, there's a lot of people out there with not their usual standard schedule, so they probably should have time for podcasts. So
yeah, I think so. I'm going to go for it. So anyway, I think that we can safely say that Helen, she's just maybe enlightened me. Do you think this is really true? Helen says it's like an acronym for Man of the House, Moth.
Oh, Moth.
Helen, I want to know why you think that. Like, do you know more than me, or you're just guessing, or what? Because that makes sense.
I've never heard that.
But it's plausible.
But if it's something that's used,
is it used by other people?
People, yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, if you've just solved my biggest riddle of the internet today, Helen, I'll be indebted to you forever. You still need to do the
podcast, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So anyway, I think we can safely say The Salt Path, big tick.
Yes, read it.
If you haven't read it, read it.
Right up there with. Actually, the last 3 books have been really, really good. So
I know. I was thinking about Around the World in 80 Trains, and did I like it better than this? And I think I would put them on a par. They're just quite different.
Yeah, they're quite different. Yeah,
I loved them both thoroughly. We've done well. So. Now, speaking of books, next month we have Step by Step by Simon Reeve, which I have not started yet. And
no, I haven't either. I've seen some of his documentaries. So.
Yes, exactly. I know of him. So and this was recommended by Catherine. So thank you, Catherine. As long as it's good, then thank you. Well, I haven't started yet, so I can't be sure.
Yes.
But so far, all our listener recommendations have turned out to be fabulous. Because this one, I don't know when I would have found it. It hasn't become well known in Australia yet.
I think that's.
But I think only because Joan could tell us from the UK that it was obviously has done very well there. So I wouldn't have found it. Who knows when I would have found it? So very grateful for that. So
it's the whole idea of the thoughtful traveller book club, I think, isn't it? So,
absolutely. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. So we'll be back at the end of August or early September probably to talk about Step by Step, which I can't wait. Thank you so much, Justin, for coming along and chatting again.
You're welcome.
And thanks everyone who's been watching. And I hope I haven't missed any other comments. I think I'm all good. But
No, I think
thank
you're
you very
all
much.
up to date.
Anyway, this has been
No worries.
awesome. Thanks heaps, Justin. And thanks everyone
again.
for watching or listening later. And we'll be back next month. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.